Hey guys, what's up? Media Retrospective here, and today I want to talk to you guys about Attack on Titan, specifically Eren Yeager, and how I think his character was completely ruined at the end of the series. Now, a lot of people have spoken already about the ending of Attack on Titan and its many flaws, the many issues with it. What I want to do today is really focus in on Eren as a character, because I loved the series. I loved Eren. It made the ending all the more bitter and sad for me to see this character that I loved, had watched for so long, just completely and utterly destroyed. And destroyed in a way that actually retroactively ruined the rest of the series for me. It's difficult to go back and even try and enjoy the earlier parts because of how it ended, which is a rare feat in itself and not the kind of thing that you want to be bragging about. So let's get right into it. Let's start talking about Eren, what he represented, what I liked about him, what I disliked about the ending, where I think the author went wrong and possibly why he went wrong, what he was trying to do. So Eren as a character to me represented really one key concept, and that was an absolute unyielding commitment to his ideals, an obsession bordering on insanity that frightened both his enemies and his closest allies and friends. And this insanity, this obsession, I think is really represented well by his Titan, the Attack Titan, and how every time Eren is in this form, it's depicted as a reflection of this pure, unbridled rage that he has, the bestial nature in which he fights. It perfectly captures the essence of his character. Not only Eren as a character, but almost the suppressed rage and primal nature of all of humanity, exposed and unleashed through Eren. So what is it that Eren is obsessed with? What are his ideals? What drives him? I think there's two things which really define the character. The first is this core ideal, this longing for freedom, or at least how Eren himself perceives freedom. From his character introduction in the very first episode, we see how Eren is dissatisfied with the world he lives in. He yearns for freedom. He resents the fact that he's trapped within the walls, living, as he puts it, like cattle. He wants to see the world. He wants to explore the world, discover the mysteries it holds for himself, and be truly free and be able to go anywhere he wants. The second defining trait of Eren, I think, is his hatred for the Titans, which is catalyzed by the brutal death of his mother, also shortly after his introduction, where he's forced to watch her be eaten and is carried away, helpless to do anything, as the residents of Trust flee in terror from the invading Titans. This hatred, coupled with his obsessive nature and his longing for freedom, is really what became the foundational parts of his character. His hatred and fury for the Titans alongside his burning desire to be free. And this characterization, I think, is built upon throughout the series. And it's this progression in his character that I want to talk about now. I want to talk about how I believe that throughout the entire series of Attack on Titan, Eren is built up in a certain way with a certain depiction, and how the ending turns its back on that and completely contradicts everything that we've seen up until that point. So I'm going to go through some of the key scenes in chronological order. We're not going to cover all the events or the whole show. I just want to call out a few particular scenes which I think were really pivotal. I want to talk about how they feed into his character, and then I want to talk about where the ending went wrong and how it went wrong. The final thing I'll be talking about in this video is actually the story which I believe inspired the author of Attack on Titan to write the series, or at least partly inspired, and I want to talk about how the ending of that series was much better than what we got in Attack on Titan. So if you're interested to hear about that original story, definitely stick around to the end. So let's get into the moments of the story that we're going to discuss. First of all, understanding Eren's rage and the source of his rage and how it intertwines with his desire for freedom is really key to what drives his character, how he reacts to the world, and how he responds to different situations. We see Eren's rage as early as the first time he transforms. The very first time Eren transforms into a Titan, he's actually trapped in the belly of a Titan and he's lost his hand, he's being digested, he's probably at almost his lowest point up till now. And there are many ways a character can react to a situation like this, right? They can be upset, they can be afraid of death, they can be angry, and in Eren's case, he is angry, he is enraged. This is the level of obsession that Eren has, that even on his deathbed when he thinks everything else is lost, the only thing he can think of is that I need to kill the Titans, I want to kill them, and if I die here, I won't be able to do that. And this rage is what triggers his first transformation. And we see how monstrous and angry his Titan is. In fact, they don't even realize, the rest of the Eldian soldiers, that there is a human in there. They don't recognize it as a human. They think it's another Titan. And you can see in the reactions of the soldiers how shocked they are, and this rage is a common theme in many of his fights. His rage is what carries him through the fight, and his Titan is always depicted as monstrous and ferocious, and it unnerves people. And we see this the first time Eren fights the female Titan as well, where he's snapping even his own bones from the force of the blows he's sending her way. And you can see throughout the fight how shocked Annie is, and even a little bit afraid of how unhinged Eren has become. Even though she's a superior fighter, he manages to overwhelm her temporarily, just through his sheer brute force. And setting that aside for the moment, I think this fight is a really pivotal moment for Eren's character, because this is the first time he makes the conscious decision to take the burden of fighting alone upon himself, the first time he steps up and he takes responsibility, in order to protect his friends and his comrades. And this is a direct result of the decision he made prior to this, when he initially held back, choosing to trust in his comrades. However, he came to massively regret this, wishing he had taken action himself immediately and transformed straight away, because this decision he made led to the deaths of all of his friends and comrades. This marks almost an evolution of Eren's principle of freedom, where he moves beyond seeking personal freedom for himself to protecting his people at any cost. He wants freedom for the Eldians, for his friends, for his comrades. And on this topic of freedom, I want to move the clock back a bit, back to when Eren was carrying the boulder to block the Trust Gate. And while he's carrying the boulder, he's thinking back to Armin, asking him why he wanted to go beyond the walls in the first place. And what Eren thinks in response is basically that he wants to be free. He considers humans to be free from the moment they're born. He doesn't want to be denied that freedom by anybody or anything. The quote from the anime is, "From the time we are born, we are free. It doesn't matter how strong those who would deny us that freedom are. Flaming water, frozen earth, I don't care what it is. The one who sees them will be the freest person in the world." The final event I want to talk about before I move on to further analysis is when Eren activates the coordinate for the first time. And again, we see Eren in a situation where he believes he's going to die. And rather than accept his death like Mikasa does beside him, he lashes out again in anger at the Smiling Titan this time, activating the coordinate in the process, instructing the surrounding Titans to devour the Smiling Titan. Just like his own Titan, the way this scene is depicted, the Titans symbolize Eren's unhinged rage, the way they tear apart the Smiling Titan, and perhaps it's even foreshadowing for the rumbling that is to come. And this is the time we see Reiner terrified after realizing that Eren has the coordinate, stating he is the worst person imaginable to have it. So everything we've discussed up to this point is prior to Eren getting his future memories and also finding out about the truth of the world. But we can see from the examples we've spoken about two key defining features of Eren's character that I discussed at the beginning. His desire for freedom above all else, not only for himself but for his people, and also his unhinged rage and how far he's willing to go and what he's willing to do to almost become a monster, as Armin puts it the second time he fights the female Titan, where he has to become a monster in order to fight monsters, as they put it. Now, Eren initially believed that his freedom and his people's freedom lay beyond the walls, and this may be part of the reason why he hated the Titans so much, alongside them being responsible for the death of his mother. It's because he saw them as an obstacle to the freedom which he so badly desired. And then we see that when Eren finds out about the true nature of the world, he's disappointed. Why was he disappointed? Because he realizes there is no empty, beautiful world out there for them to explore. There's no peace beyond the terror of the Titans on Paradis. What he instead finds is that there's a world that hates him, a fascist state that has enslaved his people and is bent on their destruction. No peace or rest to be had, only more warfare and more suffering. It's also at this point he has unlocked his memories of the future, and he gradually begins to realize that no matter what he does, he can't avoid the conflict that is about to unfold. So Eren is at a crossroads where he must choose between the people of Paradis and the rest of the world. Eren has to make a choice, just like he did in his first fight against the female Titan. And this time he chooses the people of Paradis. He decides to take the burden upon himself of saving them, saving his people. Chooses them over the rest of the world. And he decides to keep moving forwards, no matter what the cost to the world or the cost to himself. And this is what he tells Reiner when he meets him in Mali. And I believe this decision was a culmination of everything that had happened to him up to this point in the series. It makes sense, it ties back to what we know about Eren, his rage, his desire for freedom, how far he's willing to go to realise his ideals. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying I advocate for or support Eren's plan, but I'm focusing on his characterisation of a man who continues moving forwards at all cost. This is the key part of Eren that I loved, and the part of him that drives the series forwards and drives all of the actions that he takes. And he reminds me of Thanos in a way, who states that the hardest choices require the strongest wills. That's what Eren represents, a man who will do what he thinks is right no matter what it takes. So, we arrive at the rumbling, with everything that we've learned and established about Eren's character, his desire to be free, his desire to cleanse the world for his people, his desire to save the people of Paradis, and a man who we know won't stop ever once he is set on something. And again, leaving aside all the other issues that I believe the ending has, I just want to focus again on Eren. In the end, what we see is that Eren is defeated by the Alliance, and the rumbling is cut short, apparently wiping out 80% of humanity beyond the walls. And when Armin confronts Eren, Eren explains a few things to him. And these things are important, so I'm going to tick them off as I talk. So the first thing he tells Armin is that he wanted Armin and the rest of the Alliance to be viewed as heroes for stopping him. The second thing is he believes the rest of the world cannot immediately attack Paradis due to the scale of the damage he's caused. Third thing is that Eren is the one who killed his mother by sending the Smiling Titan there in the past. 4. He selfishly doesn't want Mikasa to move on from him, and apparently was in love with her the whole time. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, that he doesn't know why he did all this. And I know the anime changed some of the dialogue here slightly, but I'm going to stick with the manga ending because that's the original ending. Now, each of these creates massive problems, and retroactively ruins Eren's entire characterization. He's portrayed as pathetic and confused in his final moments when the opposite should be the case. He made a clear decision, and he made it for the freedom and protection of his friends and his people. Why would he say he doesn't know? It completely removes his agency, and it seems like a half-hearted way to walk back the choices he made in order to paint him in a better light. The Eren we've seen up till now would not have said this. He's not the kind of person who acts without reason. He made a decision and he knows why he made that decision. Stopping short at 80% is likewise also contradictory to his character. It makes Eren seem weak and convictionless, somebody who's afraid to commit all the way. And if we liken it back to Thanos again, it would be like Thanos walking back his decision to snap 50% of all life in the universe right after he gets all the Infinity Stones. It doesn't make sense for a character whose every action has been building up to this moment to suddenly get cold feet at the last second and walk it back. Another thing I hate about the points that he discusses with Armin is him killing his mother in the past, which I think is a totally horrific and unnecessary addition. Leaving aside the fact that it doesn't really make sense when you think about it, as he could have done literally anything else, it completely undercuts the trauma he went through and a big part of his motivation for wanting to wipe out the Titans. It's impossible to watch the earlier episodes of the anime without just realizing that Eren is a hypocrite because everything he is angry about was done to him by himself. It also removes agency and responsibility from the Mali invaders. Whereas before it was a point of sympathy for Eren that characters in the story also mention as part of the motivation for why he triggered the rumbling, it is warped and turned against him in the final episode, or the final chapter, and it just seems so unnecessary. I don't understand why this was added to the story. So in the end, it seems that Eren abandoned his core convictions and the drive that was so integral to his character. He enacted a half-baked plan which he didn't have the willpower to see through until the end, and then he left the rest up to chance. And this is a massive contrast with his earlier decisive and unyielding nature, which has been replaced with ambiguity and confusion. He doesn't understand his own motivations. Is this the Eren that said he would move forward no matter what, until his enemies were destroyed? Is this the Eren who wanted to protect his people and his friends no matter what, above the rest of the world? The fact that he left everything up to chance just is inexcusable. It makes the rumbling seem completely pointless. Why did Eren even bother to do it if he was just planning on leaving everything up to chance anyway? And this is supported by the manga itself, where it's shown that Paradis is actually destroyed shortly after the end of the series, after Eren stripped away their only remaining defense and also gave the world even more reason to hate the Eldians. And these inconsistencies just completely undermine Eren's character, and it completely ruins the whole character arc he's been on. I feel like the author wanted Eren to initiate the rumbling, but then felt like he had to change things at the last minute to either make the character more sympathetic or try and walk back some of the more extreme decisions. But all of that came at the cost of the fundamental nature of Eren's character, and it's a massive contributor in what made the ending so disappointing. Now, for those of you who don't know, there is a book named The Eternal Champion, which I'm sure that Isayama must have at least been partly inspired by, as there are really significant similarities between it and Attack on Titan. Now, spoilers from this point on if you want to go and read the book for yourselves. It's a fairly short book, so I definitely recommend it if you enjoyed the story of Attack on Titan and possibly want to see what inspired it. But for those of you who are interested, I'll give a short summary where in the book, the main character is a warrior who's summoned by humans to help them eradicate their hated enemy, the Eldrin. And I know that sounds similar to Eldians. Now, in the book, the humans are shown to hate the Eldrin irrationally, and they're shown to be totally uncompromising in their mission to kill them all. They want to kill the women, they want to kill the children, they want to level all their cities. And if you think this sounds familiar, then you'd probably be right. Now, at the end of the book, Ericos, the main character, after being moved by the plight of the Eldrin and becoming estranged from his own race, decides to side with the Eldrin against the humans. Now, much like Eren, he stands at a crucial crossroads where he must decide whether to allow the humans to finally eradicate the Eldrin or unleash the ancient weapons of the Eldrin to fight back. And like Eren, he also makes the choice to unleash the ancient weapons and defeat the human army. Unlike Eren, however, Ericos commits to totally eradicating the human race, as he comes to the realization that so long as they live, there will never be peace upon the earth. Now, I'm going to read a few sentences from the final chapter of the book to illustrate what he does and the consequences of his actions. I destroyed those fleets as I destroyed the garrison. Men, women, and children perished. None was spared. But I was thorough. Not merely the great cities were destroyed. Villages were destroyed. Hamlets were destroyed. Towns and farms were destroyed. I found some people hiding in caves. The caves were destroyed. I destroyed forests where they might flee. I destroyed the very stones they might creep under. And I don't have the quote for this, but essentially Ericos does not stop until he is sure that the final human has been killed. Now, Ericos himself is unsure if he made the right decision at the end. And the Eldrin themselves are horrified at what he did. They try and stop him. But the key thing is he made a decision and he committed to it. Whether or not you agree with what Ericos did, that's what gives the ending impact and that's what makes his character memorable. Eren blinked at the crucial juncture, whereas the Eren I knew never would have. He would have kept on killing until there was no one left to kill, just like Ericos. So that's the ending of this video. I'd be really interested to hear what you guys think about Eren, what you think about my analysis, and what you think about the ending of Attack on Titan. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? I'd really love to hear from all of you. Please leave a comment. And also please leave a comment if you'd like me to talk about anything else or any other topics. Thank you.